As the US levies tariffs on many of its trading partners, the global trading system is under threat. How might reform of the World Trade Organization change the playing field? Hello, I'm Owen and this is The Heat. Amid growing trade tensions between the United States and China, criticism of the global trading system is also increasing. The World Trade Organization oversees the international trading commitments and has been hit with negative comments by the US government over what it calls unfair practices. So, European and Chinese officials met in Beijing to discuss reforming the WTO. Both sides have been hit with US tariffs as the US turns more inward toward protectionism and away from globalization. CGTN's Owen Fairclough is with us now for more. And Owen, firstly, very briefly, what does the WTO do?
Anand, it's quite simply one of the pillars of the global trading system, designed essentially to keep the wheels of global trade turning, but that's becoming an increasingly difficult task at the moment. It governs 98% of global trade. It's there as the last resort to settle disputes between countries when it comes to trade, and it preaches open trade. The problem right now is many people are saying that the WTO simply isn't working. We're in the midst of a global trade war, not just between the US and China, but with other countries too. And trade barriers are going up rather than down. The EU trade chief said last month that the WTO is probably in its deepest crisis ever. And even the head of the WTO recognizes that his organization is in a bad place.
The trade tensions clearly could escalate further. We are trying to ensure that they do not, that at a minimum they stay where they are, and hopefully we can reduce them.
So simply, Anand, the WTO is now trying to find ways to essentially stop some of these countries falling out and essentially bypassing the WTO, which is what we've been seeing, particularly with the United States. US President Donald Trump is no fan of this organization. He reportedly at one point was thinking about withdrawing from it.
So, Owen, how is the WTO responding to these criticisms?
Well, certainly a lot of soul-searching on behalf of the WTO. It's been talking to lots of trade partners around the world, essentially about an ambitious reform program. On a practical level, the WTO does need to update itself a little bit. It needs to reflect the times. We're moving much more to a global trading system that's based on e-commerce rather than traditional industries, and a much more disparate global trading system. One of the things the WTO needs to do is try and keep the United States on side. This is one of the countries that helped set up the global trading system, but with Trump reportedly no fan of this and threatening to leave, the WTO is concerned about what it might do. Now, on a practical level, again, the US has been blocking judges to the appellate body of the WTO, and that's gumming up the system, essentially, when it comes to arbitrating between trade disputes.
Now, Chinese and European officials met in Beijing this week to discuss reform of the WTO. What's on their agenda?
Yeah, many familiar subjects there that we've seen in the midst of this trade battle between the US and China. We're talking about forced technology transfers. To you and I, that's trade partners being forced to hand over trade secrets. That's long been a complaint to the United States when it comes to its companies trading in China. Illegal subsidies as well. The German government was talking about this, putting pressure on China to stopping illegal subsidies. These are one of the things that causes imbalance in trading relationships, and one of the things that the WTO is supposed to regulate. But on the Chinese side, there are many people in China who are aware of these issues. For example, the former head of China's central bank recently said and admitted that China does need to do more. But we've seen over the past few years, for example, special tribunals springing up all over China to deal with intellectual property disputes, trade secrets, and so on. So China is making moves in that direction. The one thing with the WTO is how to keep it relevant, and that's a much bigger question for this organization rather than these individual subjects they're discussing. We've seen in recent years a trend towards what are called preferential trade agreements. I'm talking about things like the Trans-Pacific Trade Pact, even NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, or former one as it was, between Canada and Mexico. Lots of these regional agreements are really a challenge to the WTO, which wants a harmonized and global trading system. and we're definitely seeing more of a drift towards these regional agreements, and that is something that will take a much longer time for the WTO to try and resolve. Anand.
Thanks, Owen. That's CGTN's Owen Fairclough reporting.